Welcome back to Dickin' Around Outdoors. Today we're going to give something a try that we don't normally cook. We're going to do polenta. And the reason we're doing that is because the good folks at Cast Iron Wednesday decided that grits and polenta was going to be the May theme for their Cast Iron Wednesday cook. So we're going to do that today. We're going to try to whip up a polenta dish. We're going to use some vintage cast iron just because we're going to cook on a vintage camp stove, or at least a vintage type camp stove. So today, the first round, we're going to use a Griswold big block, which actually I got from my mother, and we're going to use a Wapuk, and those are the first two pans we're going to use. We're going to sling those onto the oven, warm those up. All right, our little Griswold is good and smoking hot. So what we're going to do is the first step, we're just going to put a couple tablespoons of olive oil in there, let that warm up for just a second, and then in goes some oregano. And that is only going to go for about 1 minute. All we're going to do is infuse that oil. Then we're going to take that off, set that aside. A little water in that oregano. We're also going to, in the larger pot, we've got some cherry tomatoes. We're going to throw those into a dry pan, and we're just going to char those for about 5 minutes. So let's let those go. And these pans are, give or take, 400 degrees. All right, we're good there. Let's turn that burner off and set this aside. And again, these tomatoes, all we're doing is charring them. So as you can see, we've got a nice char in those tomatoes. We're just going to go ahead and set those aside for now. For the next step of our cooking, we're going to use an old Wagner ware chicken fryer. So we're going to get that on the stove, let that warm up a bit. We don't want this blisteringly hot like the last two, but we want it nice and warm before we start. The pan is well heated up. In goes 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Of course, that takes very little time to warm up. Now we've got 1 onion that we've just cut into 8 sort of chunks, and those are going to go in. We're going to saute those for about 12 minutes. Our onions are looking nice and golden. They've been in there about 12 minutes like we thought. Now in goes 6 cloves of garlic. And we're just going to cook this real quickly. About 30 seconds or so. Salt, pepper, and some oregano. Going to mix that in quickly. Next we have some chopped tomatoes. And I know some of you are looking at that saying, why are you putting tomatoes in cast iron? But it is definitely not the end of the world to cook tomatoes in cast iron. And if you want to check out my video on caring for cast iron, I'll link that above. We're just going to stir that in. Add about 7 tablespoons of water, 100 milliliters. We're going to bring this to a boil. Then we're going to turn it down and simmer it for about 20 minutes. We're just going to make this into a nice sauce. It looks fantastic. It's got a nice simmer going. The tomatoes are broken down. If you remember, the first step, we charred some cherry tomatoes. At this point, they're going back in. We're going to let this go for another 8 minutes. And then we will actually make the polenta, which is the theme of this month's cook. So I expect you were wondering when we were going to get around to that. In 8 minutes, that's when we're getting around to that. Our tomato sauce is done. We're going to take that off and keep it warm. And the next pot we're going to use is a Lodge 5-quart bale handle. Not a vintage pot, but we're going to use that for a reason. The lid from this pot actually fits very nicely on the vintage Wagner pot, so we're going to just take that off the heat. We're going to set it over on the grill to stay warm, and we are going to put the Lodge pan on the fire. Into the Lodge pan goes 2 cups of vegetable stock, 1 2/3 cup of milk, and we're using whole milk, another 100 mils of water, salt and pepper, and 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to bring this to a gentle simmer, which is where we are now. We're going to slowly add in our instant polenta, and we have to keep stirring this, and this is only going to take 2 or 3 minutes. And we're going to fold in some delicious Gruyere cheese, some butter, and this is done. Oh my gosh, that smells good. And as I said earlier, I don't normally eat polenta. Camera lady likes it better than I do, or at least eats more of it than I do. But I can tell you right now, this smells really good. All right, the polenta is done. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put the Gruyere in. And the last 2 tablespoons of butter. We're just going to stir that in. And I'm telling you what, I think I might have been missing out on not eating more polenta, because this just looks and smells fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and stir this in. We're going to pull this off the fire. In fact, let's just go ahead and turn that off right now. We'll plate this up, and we'll show you this most delicious looking polenta dish. And we have started trying to eat a little more Mediterranean, and I'll tell you, this is right down center field when it comes to Mediterranean dishes. So I'm looking forward to this. All right, this smells and looks fantastic. I'm going to give it a shot here. I don't know why I haven't been eating polenta. This is fantastic. So I know it was a lot of work. I know it was a lot of dirty dishes, but this is really good. It could be a meal in itself or a great side dish. So anyway, cheesy polenta with tomato sauce from the OTK Shelf Love Cookbook. So thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the content, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. And as always, take care, and we'll see you outdoors.